right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Ellie Burns. I am the Senior Director of Nonprofit Relations at the Community Foundation, and we are so excited to have you all here today to talk about how you can position your organization for success as it relates to how the 2026 tax changes can fuel your organization's marketing strategy. So just to set the stage a little bit, the Community Foundation hosted a session in July that unpacked what the newly signed tax law means for charitable giving. We hope that you had a chance to either attend that session or watch it. It is available on our website so that you can think about how those tax changes will impact your organization or your personal charitable giving. Today, we are not tax experts, and we are going to dive into the marketing pieces of this. So our Chief Financial Officer, sorry, Carla Jones from the Community Foundation is here in case we do have questions. But really, we are hoping to really dive into the marketing piece of this. So we just want to encourage you, if you do have questions about the tax law, that you consult with your tax professional that you would talk to about all other tax questions. And so I am so excited today to welcome Michaelyn Fajan. She is our marketing expert joining us today to share ideas on how you can build a marketing strategy around these 2026 tax changes. Michaelyn has over 20 years of marketing experience and is an award-winning marketer, writer, and editor. Organizations lean on her to guide their marketing and web development efforts, and she is active in mentoring young marketers, also serving in advisory and mentoring roles when she can. Currently, Michaelyn serves on the marketing advisory board for the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines, and so we are so excited to dive into her expertise and hear from her. So I will pass it over to you, Michaelyn, right after I say, if you have questions, hold on to those until the end. We will stop the recording at the end and just give some space for authentic conversation and open Q&A. You can throw them in the chat too if you'd like, and we can sort of collect them and address them at the end. But sorry for that little snippet, but now I'll pass it to you, Michael, and thank you for being here.
That's good to get the housekeeping out of the way. Good morning, everyone. I'm Michaelyn, and thank you, Ellie, for that nice introduction. Just give a further introduction for you of a little bit of what we do. We are considered a boutique marketing agency in Des Moines, and our goal is to really make marketing more doable for some of our nonprofit clients that we handle. Not overwhelming and not confusing, but purposeful and effective so that you guys can get back to some of the great work that you do and the teams that you need to do it best. So do want to just talk a little bit about what we're going to cover here today. Oops, there we go. Of course, recap the tax changes that you have learned about in the last session that are coming ahead, and then maybe find and discover ways that you can use these to inform now what's coming next in your marketing strategy, how to align it with that. I want to make sure that you get resources to help you take some of those next steps. And of course, as Ellie said, we'll chat about questions here at the end. Well, the truth is that these new tax changes can either cause uncertainty or they might actually present some opportunity for nonprofits who position themselves more strategically here. So today we're going to focus on how you can position that message really to meet donors where they are. We're going to dive into some of the upcoming laws that change to better identify some of the audiences that you can focus on and help you choose some of the right channels to find them and meet them and communicate to them, but also create some marketing strategies that will engage them maybe more personally and then effectively. So while some of these elements of the tax structure remain unchanged, like the income brackets and the higher standard deduction, there are going to be some that do change that really do pose some opportunities for you. So let's dive into the provisions that actually change that are coming. And I've done this in a way that breaks it out. I believe this is something that you went through in your last session as well, but breaks out what I would consider four distinct audiences here. So while some of those other provisions do stay the same, these are the four major tax changes that are really going to affect the giving behaviors. And the big four changes here are probably going to reshape how some of your donors and donor groups or donor audiences approach philanthropy. So we can talk a little bit about how this is going to affect them specifically. But what I've broken down here are non-itemizers, those people who are seeing maybe a smaller tax deduction based on whether they're filing singly or jointly. And then giving thresholds for what we would call the itemizers. These are the people who are going to be itemizing or looking to itemize their deductions. And then the high income or high earners, we'll talk about that deduction cap that they're going to see and what that might mean for urgency in 2025. And then finally, your corporate partners, how their giving requirements might change to actually offer some longer term opportunity for you as a nonprofit. So let's dive in a little bit. I want to first start with this non-itemizer group. As you prepare for the end of 2025, your Q4 marketing efforts and your 2026 marketing efforts, segmentation of your audience is really important. We can't be saying the exact same message to everyone. So this is where we talk about those top four and how now we'll start to segment who they are and what they need. So first is this everyday giver, or who we would call the non-itemizer. These people aren't necessarily weighing tax code in their giving, but they are an audience that wants it to be simple. Their donor shout outs are helpful here, but they are typically non-itemizers. They're motivated by cause and convenience. They're going to value simple giving. So when I mentioned donor shout outs here, these are things like where we can give them a little bit of love, acknowledging that the new tax benefit is simple and it can be rewarding for them. And you might position here how small gifts can really offer a tax deduction here or a little tax benefit. So when I say have them in this target area, these are donors who are already giving or are more of a broad base of your donors who might be motivated by just a small tax deduction or small tax benefit. So that's how we see this group. Let's move into the strategic itemizers. This audience is actually going to appreciate tools that help them reach their deduction threshold. So for these folks, they're already giving more significantly, and they may now need to meet that new threshold. And so potentially here, this is a group where you'll see that their giving is perhaps more responsive to tools. So where we can talk a little bit about tax-wise giving or give them some tips here is going to be helpful for this group. The next group we would consider are these high earners or high income donors. Here we would tailor messaging to some of their interests. They're currently being hit with a deduction cap. It's not huge, but for bigger givers, it can have a bigger impact. They're into legacy giving and naming opportunities. They're likely going to want to see outcomes from their giving. So this is where because their tax benefit actually shrinks in 2026, instead of saving 37 cents in taxes for every dollar donated, they're saving about 35. So for nonprofits, you might consider or reconsider, help them to reconsider the timing and the size of their gifts, especially in 2025 before that cap takes effect. So again, these are people who are facing a little bit more of an urgency and might be looking to bunch up their giving in 2025. Moving then to the next one, which is our final target audience here, which are corporate givers. These corporate givers, as you know, are a tricky bunch, whether they're a local corporation or they are a national corporation giving. They want data. They want visibility. They are required to give at least 1% of their taxable income. They're going to be interested in how this aligns with their brand exposure or brand awareness opportunities here. You'll note that there's likely a finance department involved, and so they're going to prefer to see metrics and want to have some kind of a partnership value here. But for this group, that visibility and recognition matters here. This is how they're elevating their giving. They want to be able to showcase this as a part of their brand. And if you have the opportunity, this is where when you can get them in on your mission or on site in your mission field. I would give an example here, like Habitat for Humanity. They do this brilliantly. Corporations bring their teams out. They're quite literally the ones who are, nailing in the siding and painting the walls. And there is a certain connection now to their giving, even for folks who are a part of it. They can drive by on a Sunday afternoon and swing through a neighborhood and tell their kids, hey, your mom or dad, we did that. We actually put that siding up. So that's an opportunity where you can take their brand and put it in your mission field. For them to be a participant in it. So for them, corporate social responsibility is important, and where you can align your mission with that for them, like how does it make them a stronger community player, a partner, an asset in the community, just by being a part of and being a giver to your nonprofit is key. So again, I would focus messaging to some of the finance departments for these folks too, because of their preference on metrics. But the good thing here is that a relationship with a corporate partner is a longer play. This isn't something that we're just like rushing to do at the end of Q4 here. This is a longer multi-year giving strategy. And because of this new tax change, it only cements the idea that you can really build on that relationship for a longer term play. So let's jump into our next section here. The important thing about marketing is that you don't need to be everywhere. I think that's sometimes a misconception. When we talk about segmentation, the goal is to focus where your audience already is and to tailor that outreach accordingly. So the frequency of communications is important, but the takeaway for this area is that quarterly, you should be thinking about big picture, donor stories, mission-focused tiebacks, how that tax changes will mesh with your giving. So matching that message to the motivation. And then throughout the year, if you're talking about frequency of communications in your marketing strategy, maybe every other month, so 6 times a year, you might think about more targeted touch points. But then always in Q4, as you already are probably ramping up, is where we get more intense in Q4. These are going to be the focus campaigns here that have reminders that have like trigger actions. So for the everyday giver, one of our target audiences, the first one, this is simple. Keep it simple. Like give this, deduct this, to being able to show that messaging really simply. For the strategic giver, this is an itemized giver. Maybe it's a graphic example of showing how this bunching would look versus a multi-year giving as it relates to the tax changes that are ahead for them. And then the high income folks, this is where your messaging strategy is more personalized. These are your calls. These are your personalized letters. These are VIP, maybe education events. Maybe that's something like bringing in an estate attorney, if it's not a conflict of interest, but especially there to help them understand how to accelerate their gifts in 2025 to maximize their tax deduction is important for this group. And then from the corporate perspective, reaching the right people. This is where we'll talk a little bit about LinkedIn. So let me hop into this next slide here to give you some examples um, of how messaging can be crafted in a way that uses emotion, but also logic and that urgency for them to really understand that you have an understanding of what of the tax changes that are coming ahead. So again, for those everyday givers, this might be something like, as I mentioned, really simple, right? Give this, deduct this. So make a difference and earn a $1,000 tax deduction. The strategic giver, that your gift could be the one that qualifies you for a deduction. So setting the stage here that a change is coming and that there's some urgency to maximizing their deduction. For the high income donors, these folks want to note that they are having an impact, that they're connected to their community. So here, really focusing on that tax smart giving for 2025, a little bit more urgency, make an impact in your community. There's some great messaging that will help you ramp up to like the timeline here, like, don't miss out. We're coming to the end of the giving year. This is your time to maximize that deduction. And then for your corporate partners, um, showing here how it relates to the impact of their gift. If we can even quantify an opportunity here, or something like maximize your giving power with a new tax benefit, partner with us to strengthen the community that your business calls home, if they are actually located here in central Iowa. So considering the messaging for the tax implications that they have is going to make this a little bit more personalized for them and create some confidence that you're looking out for their best interests. Whoops. Timing. Make sure I didn't skip one here. I got a fast roller on my mouse. Content and timing. We talked a little bit about the intensity, and this is where a calendar can really help you and your teams. Building a calendar on this Q4 giving campaign. So this is starting October. We're right around the corner on this, rolls through January. This planning schedule for some of these important tax-related messages is where urgency is high. So this is where you might include stories of impact here, FAQs about tax benefits, some timely reminders around the tax season. And in that education, those FAQs can be really helpful. They don't have to be long and detailed. They can just be some short, maybe they come to them in an email format along with some tax tips. So rather than always leaning with us promoting who we are first too, in this season for this particular topic, we're really leading with this idea of education. Like, did you know this is coming? Did you know you could be optimizing your deductions? And then reminders are so important here that if you know or you have been tracking this, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the tools and resources that you can use for this, but if you're tracking this and noting that there are specific thresholds that this specific donor is close to meeting. Those are good reminders that can be automated or sent out personally. Matching gifts, that's an opportunity for a reminder content that can go out. And then deadlines. Of course, that's where we really want to remind them that tax season's close or some of these deadlines are close. So now that we talked a little bit about that timing and about how that messaging might shape or where to find these folks or where to message to these folks, it's important for us to understand the tools and the resources that we can use. And when I look at tools and resources, I look at these as three different pillars. And so right now you're in the middle of, if not already having done, is building this marketing strategy. And the first step in that is segmenting those target audiences, understanding who falls into what category of these four pillars, four areas. Then starting to streamline the messaging for them. Then that next phase is the planning and alignment. So making sure that we have our teams that are handling this, who are going to execute on all of these great strategies, that they have a really detailed plan in place, timing, messages, topics, themes, and then aligning those with what our messages are as a nonprofit. So it's one thing to be speaking all of this tax-wise content, but if we're not meshing it into who we are at our core, what our mission is and what some of our visions are, then we're just educating on taxes in general. So really making sure that you're aligning that messaging with who you are at your core and the culture of the nonprofit that you serve. And then finally, verifying and trust, or verify and trust. This is an area I think particularly for this topic. I mean, I'll be the first one to tell you, I know a lot more about marketing than taxes, and I prefer it that way, honestly. So this is possibly true for a lot of nonprofits too. You're stepping into a zone that you are not professionals in. This is where it helps to rely on a professional or lean on a professional here. Because if we're giving any kind of advice or tax suggestions out to our audience that aren't 100% correct, we really erode confidence that they would have in us. And that is such a delicate balance that we don't even want to touch that. So I'll talk a little bit more about this verifying and trust piece too. So 3 pillars of effective tools. This first one I'll dive into is the segmenting and the streamlining. So when these all work together, they help you prepare your teams, your message, your strategy to be more effective. And segmentation and, well, what I would even call automation, the goal there is to save time. We are in this world of AI. We are in this world where so many things are at our fingertips that if we can make use of them, they can save us time and energy and help our teams execute really systematically. And it sharpens the personalization as well when we lean into some of these automated areas. I understand that CRM tools, which we're talking about here, all have a price tag on them. So some of you that are, in a nonprofit space where you're using some of these very advanced tools, that's great. For some of you, you're not able to use those levels of tools. So I have some suggestions here as well. But the idea of segmenting and using CRM tools allows us to capture, sort, track, automate based on the data that we have for our donor. And when you're planning your campaign and aligning your message, especially around tax deadlines, this is a really important way for us to manage what's going out and the timing of that. So there are other CRM tools. There's, like a Salesforce for nonprofits, Razor's Edge. All of these are really, really powerful if you know how to use them correctly. To tagging, to segmenting, to automating messages. In fact, like if you're using these for considering like those 4 groups, say it's the high income earner. This is where you might tag that, and I would say inside of a CRM tool, if you're working in it, you have these abilities to tag. Tagging with these 4 areas would be really crucial. So if we are tagging someone like a high income earner, then we know that they are someone who we could automate this, be invited, flagged to be invited to a webinar on tax changes ahead, especially since theirs have this urgency attached to them to maybe bunch some of their giving in 2025. So using these tools are really effective by tagging them with these 4 temporary tax change audiences, let's call it that. But then there's some alternatives as well. So instead of using these big CRM tools, this would look like using your email service provider, your MailChimp, your Constant Contact. Within those email service providers, you can segment and tag groups really easily. And then you can even build email automation for those folks based on that journey. So again, high income folks, the tagging of that would have an automated message that would hit probably in October, again, gently in November with a little bit of a story and a value of how their donation impacts those that you serve within your nonprofit. And then in December, a far more intense, urgent call for you're coming to the close of the end of the year. This is an opportunity to take advantage of that tax deduction. So this is where email service providers can be helpful, and leaning on those if you don't have a CRM tool that's robust. Then, of course, there's the old faithful of spreadsheet. Maybe some of you are still operating in those, and that's where even segmenting them into a sheet is going to help you identify those audiences, grab those email lists, and then tailor an email message that should go out with the timing for those. And we'll talk a little bit about timing of those messages in a bit. But as far as uh, as far as the automated reach, the goal is that you're trying to reduce what your teams have to have in it for timing, so that this is an efficient process. It means that you have to build these things out far in advance and have them really well dialed in. So just making note of a CRM tool isn't anything unless you have the right messaging behind the journey and the automation. So refining that is important. So moving into this, so this is where if you are doing streamlining and segmentation, this is where you're going to have, you're going to flag who these donors are in each of the levels. And this is where you might have more tax-wise conversations with the donors to review how it's going to impact their strategies, as we mentioned before. But areas that we can actually segment are by their giving history. So we can identify whether they're a first-time donor or they're a reoccurring donor or even a lapsed donor. This is a great opportunity to come back with an education message to that lapsed donor that shows that you have put their best interests first, right? We're trying to create tax efficiencies for them. And then you've had an opportunity for a touch point. So these tax changes do give you another opportunity to get in front of a lapsed donor. I wouldn't miss out on that opportunity at all. And then by their tax profile. So if you have done the homework and you go in and you can tag these donors, whether they are within those 4 audience groups, non-itemizers, itemizers, the high income, and then the corporate partner, that helps you segment as well. And then even by, I would say, engagement behavior. So if you're tracking event attendance, any kind of the VIP events that you've had or appreciation events, if you're doing anything related to volunteer hours or a response to how they have responded to past campaigns. So this is an area where a CRM tool is most effective, and particularly for the people who are working in development, to be able to know who to reach out to and when. Let's see. There we go. The second pillar is this planning and alignment area. The goal with planning and aligning is that you're ensuring that every donor segment feels understood, they feel valued, they feel like you have an understanding of these kind of complex issues. And all of these donors are even have an awareness of the complexity of their tax issues. But this can help your teams turn it into something that's relatable with very simple messages. So you're all speaking the same language, and here a calendar is really impactful. At the end of this, I will send out to Community Foundation and they will pass on to you a checklist for nonprofits as they put together their marketing strategies. And it will include some of these ideas here too, but a campaign calendar. If you're not using one, these can be as simple as putting this into a spreadsheet, adding it to some kind of a project management tool like a Trello, depending on how you might be using your project management, or it's as simple as quite literally putting it into a visual calendar for your teams to print off monthly for them to see. But it helps us to align our messages with the seasonality of taxes, the urgency of some of these messages, and also integrate the platform that you're going to use. So are we doing this on social? Are we doing this in an email format? Is this going to be an on-site event, an off-site event, a webinar? So really helpful for you to plan out your year and also understand from a development perspective how frequently we are doing touch points with these people. You can see that at a glance. These calendars are crucial in my book. The other tool is a messaging matrix. This is something that we build out for nonprofits because it's really important that not only that we have the calendar, but that we know what we're saying inside of every one of these channels to all of these different audiences. So it's typically something that organizes your core messages in your nonprofit with each one of those target audiences. So how are we speaking to, I'm going to continue to go back to like the corporate partner. What are the messages that they need to hear? How does it align with things that are important for them? So how do we position our messaging so that it meets them where they are? And then what are their key concerns? What are their biggest motivations? We're going to tailor our messaging to that. And I even do this in like a spreadsheet column. So first is that target audience. Second would be what are those key concerns and motivations of that audience? And how does our messaging match that? Then the core message. What is it exactly that you want them to know? What's the most important takeaway in that messaging? Then even a column that's helpful for me is like core data or any kind of graphics or case studies that drive home this point. So if you know you have some things in your library that are related to examples of giving for a high earner, and if you can even develop some of these for this urgency of 2025, this bunching, what it would look like now versus what it would look like later. Those are good stories based on data that can help build some trust. And then their preferred channels. Would be like the final column that I would have in there. So how you're going to reach them. And again, that's, social, email, one-on-one, personal calls isn't an event. So think of building this out as a real cheat sheet for your campaigns. I promise you that your teams are going to thank you that a lot of this work is done ahead of time. So if you don't already have this is an excellent goal to kick off your marketing year in January, is to sit down and work through a messaging matrix. You can go Google examples of messaging matrices for nonprofits, and I would guess that there would be a handful of really great templates out there that you could download. But it's such a great way to really align your calendar with your message, with your mission. So a good roadmap. Inside of this campaign calendar, as we talked about, I wanted to just kind of give you an example and show you one way that you can do this. This is a very broad scale, like this is all of the month of October. If we were working with a nonprofit, it would be like week by week or day by day, every other day, how frequently we're hitting them in October or each month. This is just really a broad look for you because it's only what I can fit on this slide. So considering something like October, here we have you're launching, the focus is to launch the education. What's happening? What's changing? What kind of tax implications might you see if you are X, Y, or Z giver? So this is a good opportunity to use a blogging format here. Webinars, right now, people seem to have a little bit more time than they're going to have when they get into November and December to even attend something like this. Emailing out links or a quick FAQ on this topic would be super powerful. But this kind of format is sort of what we would call progression of messaging. So we're starting with a drip, and the first drip in October is launching the education. Then we move into September, and we're talking about stewardship, which is always on most of the calendars for you all, and the storytelling. Like, how do we match these sort of heartfelt stories, these um, cause stories and impact stories with our mission? And so sharing some of those donor stories and that impact. And then we would move into December, where we have to have a little bit more heavy reminder. We're trying to meet the end of our year goals. We want them to be able to maximize their tax deductions if it applies in 2025. So high deduction thresholds, we're promoting corporate sponsorships here. Sometimes a countdown campaign via email or social media can be helpful here too. And then January, where we have just a little bit of a breath to move into gratitude campaigns and into really impact reports. So the thank yous and reminding some of those who might be late givers that they have this time period before April 15th to maximize their giving. And then finally, using February and April as a tax focused content. Obviously, this isn't going to be all of the content that you're doing. We're talking about this as a thread of one of your contents that's related to this tax change. But these are tax driven touch points here that if we do some educational content, the FAQs, emails out to the donors, maybe even webinars I wouldn't wait till April for a webinar. I would do something like that closer to mid-February, so that as you're leading up to that deadline, they have some time to make some adjustments. So this is just a format that gives you an idea of how messaging progression can happen. So when you're even building out your calendar for the year ahead, consider what does your summer look like too? You could be doing some of the same messaging so that when you come back to October in 2026, you already have this progressive focus already in play and in place and can just sort of readjust based on any tax changes that happen. So, sorry. And 3, we talk about verify and trust. So here's where, again, if we want to build confidence and we want to make sure that a donor who is ready to give can trust us with that giving amount, we want to make sure that our message and our facts are accurate so that we don't erode any of that. So partnering with a financial or tax advisor here can be helpful. This doesn't have to be, someone that you highlight or spotlight in your social media or on your blogs or anything. It can even just be for your own consultation, but it's just making sure that the content that goes out to the public is factual and that you've mitigated any risk. It's something I even did with this PowerPoint just to make sure, like, I know I'm not a tax professional. I know I'm not an expert. I probably don't even always have the lingo correct. But I want somebody to have eyes on this who does and who can verify the accuracy of the tax talk that we're having here today. So again, it builds trust with the donors and positions you as being reliable. And people do want to know that you're not out there just on mission, but that you also have this business sense and a certain acumen to your nonprofit that they can trust and know that their money is going to be well managed. So putting this into action, go take a review of the last campaign's messaging just to give yourself a gut check on it. Can you back up everything that you have claimed, the facts, the figures, the data, the graphics and the graphs that you've put together? So just considering that as you move forward in tax talk or tax messaging here. There are some other ways that you could put this into action. So if you want to elevate a CPA or you want to elevate a tax attorney here or someone you could gently partner with and have a collaboration with, you could consider co-hosting a webinar. So again, this is something that you would try to kick off in October and before you even move into the stewardship season too deeply, and have some Q&A sessions. I think that would be really powerful for some of those folks that you have who are consistent givers, who have had longevity with your organization. It just shows that you care and positions you as a trusted source. So they, again, should, I would say, review your donor-facing materials if you're putting any of that out here in the next 6 months. So thinking about who you have in your circles that you could trust as an expert for some kind of collaboration. I'm gonna make sure I didn't miss anything here. So lastly, I just want to mention that I did create this checklist for you that the Community Foundation can share via email. I know there's a lot here, but these are simple steps. They truly are that can help guide you as you really sit down and you prepare for that season that's ahead. Using this segment, align, and plan strategy to kick off some of your marketing. So I know that we have some time here for questions, and I'm hopeful that a few of those can be addressed here today. And I hope that they aren't tax law specific, but we do have somebody here who can help, because I know where I shine and it's not as a CPA. So Ellie, I'll turn it over to you if there are some questions that you have in the chat that you want to fire off.
Yeah, oh my gosh, thank you so much, Michael. And this was great. I think as I was listening and I think about the conversations that we have sometimes within our colleague connects, just such a testament to how important it is that your marketing and development teams are walking hand in hand and communicating with each other and partnering. And so that was a theme I heard loud and clear here, but really great pieces of advice and suggestions. So thank you so much. We didn't have any questions in the chat. We had a resource from Alex, so thanks for sharing that. While you're maybe thinking about questions that you might want to pose, I can go ahead, Michael, and if you just want to advance to the slide with the QR codes, I'll talk a little bit about, and Michael did share her contact info, and we'll share these slides out afterwards. So just some QR codes here on the screen, different ways to stay connected with the Community Foundation. Give DSM is our online giving platform. If you don't have an ask on there, great time to do that. We'll definitely bulk up our marketing of that website as we get closer to Giving Tuesday and giving season. Upcoming training opportunities are available there in the second QR code. Keep your eye out for different things that we'll offer before the end of the year. Our nonprofit newsletter comes out monthly. If you're not on that newsletter, please feel free to sign up. It's a great way to stay connected to our resources and those through some of our partners in the community. And then finally, we do have space available for rent at the C3 Center. So if you are a 501c3 organization and you want to have maybe a board meeting or a meeting about how your marketing team is going to strategize for the rest of the year, you could definitely come and utilize some space at the C3 Center.